Revenge. Against those who made me suffer. I will bring ruin upon them. She came back for that sole reason alone, but just why did things then end up that way? The man on top of her called her name, his gaze locked onto her. He tilted her head, then as he leaned in closer he whispered like a starving beast, "More, I need more." Before finally kissing. While Sarah on the other hand convinced herself it was all for revenge. And to achieve that goal, she wouldn't care what she was supposed to do. A year ago, she was just an ordinary high school student. On her way back home from school, a mysterious circle suddenly appeared under her feet, pulling her right through it. She was suddenly summoned to another world. The people around celebrated the successful summon, exploding with joy that the kingdom of Linus had been saved. However, she just sat in confusion, wondering who those people were. Everyone around her were dressed like they were in a cosplay, but that wasn't the strangest thing. Why were they making such a fuss over her? At the same time, a man stepped forward asking with a modest tone that the emperor meet her. She turned around and found a man seated clearly like an emperor on his throne. He asked for her name, but she remained silent, still confused. Noticing this, the empress acknowledged her confusion but asked that she tell them her name first. She took a deep breath before responding, revealing her name was Sarah. Not up to a minute after she revealed her name, a man suddenly appeared in front of her with his hands stretched outwards. He tapped her head without warning and a bright golden light illuminated the room. Seeing this, the man was shocked before revealing she possessed the strongest power among all the saintesses from other worlds in history. Without hesitation he declared her the current pure white saintess, and the people immediately exploded with joy. They marveled at having two such powerful saintesses at once, Lady Sarah and Angelica, the jet black saintess. However, their actions only threw her into more confusion. Another world. What does that mean? What's a saintess? She trembled with fear, her eyes watery as a soft plea escaped her lips. Please, stop. She cried that she wanted to go home, begging them to allow her leave that strange place, but her hopes were instantly shattered the minute the emperor informed her returning to her originally world would no longer be possible. Later, she heard a knock on her door, and a few minutes later, a man with blonde hair and a lady with purple hair walked in. She asked who they were, and the man introduced himself as Curtis, the crown prince. The lady followed next, introducing herself as Lady Angelica, the saintess of that country. Her eyes darted to the side as she wondered if they were going to make a fuss over her like the others did, but rather, they sympathized with her and assured her they'll stick with her from then on. Angelica rushed forward and grabbed her hand, asking her not to hesitate to call them over whenever she felt down, promising they'll come running to her side immediately. Overwhelmed, her eyes welled up and she thanked them. The next day, once her heart had calmed down a little, a priest came by and taught her various things. She learned that place was the kingdom of Linus, which worshipped the goddess Linus, and she was a saintess summoned by the goddess from another to save that country. Apparently a saintess was necessary to deploy the great barrier that protected the kingdom from the demon tribe. As the highest-ranking pure white saintess, she was deployed many maids and guards and was treated like a princess of the realm. His Highness Curtis and Lady Angelica came to see her every day and supported her as she loved for her original world. Before she knew it, the two of them had become someone precious to her. She never could have imagined that a cruel betrayal was awaiting her in the future. Just a few days after her summoning, she ended up having to begin her training as Saintess. Etiquette at the church, behavior befitting a Saintess in training and healing techniques that only a Saintess can use. Prayers for the people of the kingdom of Linus. It was challenging having to learn so many things at once, but by throwing herself into it, she was able to forget her loneliness. Little by little, it started to make her happy that the people of Linus relied on her as the pure white Saintess. It seemed Angelica was busy with her duties as a marquis daughter, so she never went along with her to the church in town, but that didn't bother her at all. After all, she was busy and nothing could be done about it. Moreover, Angelica was always by her side. She defended her whenever people spoke ill of her. She was a truly precious friend to her. As she devoted herself to her daily Saintess training, her healing power improved and more people came to admire her even though she was someone from another world. One time the prince asked to go out and she agreed. The next day at tea with Angelica, she brought up her outing with the prince and she didn't withhold any information. Her cheeks flushed bright red as she described how he held her hand so they wouldn't get separated. Angelica was happy she got to enjoy the outing, however she admitted she was worried about her. She explained that some people were jealous of her and the prince, so she hoped the harassment towards her wouldn't get any worse. Sarah, on the other hand, didn't show any signs of few. She simply thanked her and revealed she also wished to get closer to the prince. She steadily grew closer to the prince, then one day, he proposed. Her assured her that it didn't matter if she was from another world, he didn't want anyone but her. And so, she accepted. After that, they went ahead to ask the king for permission for their marriage. He didn't look pleased at first, but by agreeing to the condition that they keep it a secret until the Great Barrier is completed, they were granted permission to get engaged. After that, she also began putting effort into studying history and etiquette, as well as practicing dance. For the sake of the prince and also for the sake of the kingdom. But a month before the Great Barrier was to be cast, the prince suddenly became distant. He'd blow her off, claiming to be busy at the moment. Initially, she thought he might just be busy with the day to cast the Great Barrier approaching quickly. She had thought that, but one time Angelica asked about her relationship with the prince in recent days and she admitted that they hadn't really met since he'd been busy. Hearing that, Angelica raised a finger to her lips and questioned, "Busy? But he came to my room last night." She brushed it off, asking her to forget what she just said, while Sarah tried to ignore the feeling in her chest. She wanted to believe there could be nothing like that between them. Then a year after the day she was summoned, the day of the Great Barrier ritual finally arrived. She noticed her nervousness and consoled her. They stepped closer to the magic circle and she closed her eyes, assuring herself she'll be fine. She stretched her hands towards it, but after a while she noticed something strange. She'd been told all she needed to do was simply supply power to it and it's be completed, but even after so long there was no sign of it forming. The light of the circle was incomplete too. Suddenly something pulled her hand. She turned to Angelica for help, but she simply pushed her backwards. She watched her struggle desperately after falling into the circle before finally revealing her true colors. Sarah in confusion asked why she was doing all that, if they weren't friends after all, but she just let out a light scoff as she dismissed her words, following with an even more painful sentence. "Friends? You were the only one who'd ever thought that." She shifted into a shocking confession, admitting ever since she's shown up everything's been awful. Because she's a saintess from another world, everyone treats her specially while she has to remain nothing but a supporting character, but that'll change now. Because after today, she will become the great saintess in the kingdom, while she will be swallowed by the magic circle as a sacrifice for the Great Barrier. Just like all the other people from other worlds before her. Her eyes filled up and she panicked, quickly screaming that she didn't want to die, but Angelica simply laughed in her face as she called her with pity, promising her after she dies, the title of pure white saintess and the crown princess's title, she'll take care of everything for her. The crown prince appeared by the window, and then she finally realized they'd been together all along, and the same for all the nobles. So all the friendship and affection and respect she believed in was all a lie. She only existed to be a sacrifice for the Great Barrier. Even though she worked so hard for them, they betrayed her without hesitation, even making her struggle entertainment. Her struggle, her effort, her life. What was it all for? In that last minute she swore never to forgive them, but before that resolve could even settle in her, she felt something hard crush her fingers. Angelica stood there with a grin, thanking her for everything she's done for them, farewell forever. But it wasn't exactly that. The next time she opened her eyes, she found the goddess of the kingdom of Linus, the one who chooses saintesses from other worlds, standing before her. First, she thanked her for offering her power for the sake of the kingdom. As thanks, she offered to grant her one wish. She assumed she wanted to reincarnate back to her original worlds just like the others, but she cut her off sharply, demanding she wait. Anger boiled within her and she asked if that was all she had to say. To her, someone who'd been summoned without consent, without even a single word of apology? She demanded to know who she really thought they were, but the goddess, disregarding her concerns, simply asked why she was upset. She was chosen, and in recognition of her achievement she was granting her a new life. She asked her to tell her wish once more, and at that moment she felt something stir within her. No, I won't reincarnate. I don't need a new life either. So send me back to the moment I was summoned to the kingdom of Linus with all my memories intact. If not, never summon anyone from another world into the kingdom of Linus again. So which will it be? Without hesitation she chose to send her back with her memories intact. In a split second she found herself back to the day she was summoned, but this time, there was a certain glint of defiance that sparked in her eyes. You want to see me in 1 year? Fine, you just wait. The kingdom of Linus that tormented us, the people from other worlds, and the goddess herself, I will personally make sure you pay. Just like the past, everyone celebrated having summoned a Saintess from another world. Just like before, the Long also asked for her name and she responded. A man stepped forward and touched her forehead. She realized this is where the strength of the Saintess's power, and a question forms in her mind. When it was declared that I was the pure white Saintess, I wonder what kind of face Angelica made. Since I have the chance, I might as well enjoy seeing her frustrated expression. However, his reaction was different from last time. The king, noticing this, asked the strength of her power, and the man responded without hesitation, explaining that in terms of rank her power was dull gray. A Saintess's title changes based on the strength of her power. The biggest rank is pure white Saintess, the next is the jet black Saintess. The third is the crimson Saintess, followed by the true purple, and dull gray is below the lowest rank Saintess. She wondered why that suddenly happened, then she realized the goddess must be behind it all. Since she was the dull gray Saintess, they named Angelica the pure white Saintess. The king questioned what it meant for the Saintess from the other world to be dull gray, and the man responding saying he didn't know either. It was after all the first time in history this had happened. The men that could listen immediately questioned what will then happen to the Great Barrier. Those who knew the truth about the Great Barrier must be panicking, as the other worker they summoned turned out to be useless. And judging by Angelica's reaction, it was clear she didn't know the truth at that point yet. Just like the past, Angelica approached her promising to protect her, but this time as the pure white Saintess. Not long after, a priest walked up to them and pulled Angelica away. She was able to notice how the people had stopped paying her attention the minute they found out she was only a full gray Saintess, even though they were the ones who'd summoned her. But that actually worked in her favor. The fewer eyes she had on he will make it easier for her to move freely. So now, what should I do? Angelica was fussed over, and even the White Palace prepared originally FKR the summoned otherworlder was given to her. She knew it would be strange to grant it to the lowest ranked Saintess, but then, just where was she supposed to stay? Just then a boy appeared with most of his hair covering his face as he asked if she was indeed the Saintess from another world. She responded with a yes, and he introduced himself afterwards as Prine, her attendant. Born into the prestigious Carlson Marquis family, and raised by parents who died on her, Angelica could obtain whatever dress or shoe she wanted. Her striking appearance from a young age became even more refined as she got older, and everyone praised her beauty. Angelica, who was also skilled at winning people's favor, gathered admiration and envy in the social class, and eventually began to find pleasure in satisfying her need for recognition over material desires. The praises, constantly being under the spotlight, felt good. However, the satisfaction of her heightened need for recognition was only temporary. And so, she went after the crown prince. But one day, she found out about the summoning of a Saintess from another world. They said the Saintess from another world will possess power far surpassing the Saintess of this world. If such a person was summoned, that would threaten her position. And then came the morning of the summoning. On the other hand, Sarah followed her attendant. She asked where he was taking her, pointing out that if they kept walking they'll eventually leave the castle grounds. He explained that there was actually a remote church that needed her power, so he wanted to take her there. Confused, she asked why a Saintess would be needed there, and he explained that there were many people with distress, soldiers injured after the conflict with the demons. Clueless, she asked why demons attacked the country, if they just enjoyed slaughtering humans, but he quickly explained that there was a reason: they attacked to retrieve the Dark Jewel. The Dark Jewel used in the Great Barrier originally belonged to the Demon King, and if it wasn't in the Demon King's possession the world's balance would collapse. But because the Leashed kingdom monopolized both the light and dark jewels, other countries were suffering. She ponders silently on it, now understanding the Leashed kingdom stole the dark jewel from the Demon King, and it was richer than others because it monopolized the jewels. She recalled when she was training as a Saintess, they told her the Demon King was an absolutely terrible being. She couldn't exactly trust the man who was on the demon side, but that could also be an opportunity for her. If she wants revenge against the Leashed kingdom, she should do it from another kingdom and not there. She agreed to go with him to the frontier. However, once they got out to the road, he offered an apology to her before placing a towel over her nose, fading her consciousness. Luckily, she opened her eyes just minutes before the carriage pulled to a stop. Once he noticed she was awake, he rushed to her and apologized for being rough with her, explaining that he had to get her inside there to get her out of the castle. He offered to bring her food and water immediately, however she turned it down, asking who knows if he'd have slipped more drugs into it. He admitted she had a point. Then he went down on his knees and apologized again for deceiving her without telling her anything. She wondered if that was some kind of joke, hearing that from an ally of the Demon King, and couldn't help but burst out into laughter. Once they stepped out, a man walked out. Fi received them. From the visible horns on his head she knew for certain he was a demon. She understood what was happening. Since the demons couldn't enter the Leashed kingdom, they used a human to kidnap her, but it didn't seem like he was threatened into kidnapping her, so just what was their relationship? He took her to the Demon King right away, and she was shocked to discover that the infamous Demon King was actually a child. He sent out Prime, then he released her afterwards. He asked for her name, and after she told him, he introduced himself as Yomadoit. Then without hesitation he informed her they had only one goal, which was to retrieve the Dark Jewel from the Leashed kingdom, but for as long as the barrier was up, the demons wouldn't be able to set foot in Leashed, and that was why they abducted her. She asked if they wouldn't just summon another Saintess after they noticed she's missing, but he simply responded, calling it impossible. Then he explained that the light jewel needed to accumulate power for that to happen, and that came from the Saintess' sacrifice to maintain the Great Barrier. Then, taking a bold step, she walked towards him with a proposal. "How about making a deal with me? I want to borrow your power to make my wish come true in exchange for getting the Dark Jewel back into your hands." She promises to tell him about the whereabouts of the Dark Jewel if he takes her under his wing. He asks her what'll happen if he refuses, and she responds saying she'll just find someone else who is willing to cooperate. He asks what it is she desires, and she without hesitation reveals. Destruction and despair. My wish is that I will take revenge on the kingdom of Leashed and the goddess with these hands. She asks that they join forces since their interests are so aligned. Noticing his silence, she asks if he's dissatisfied with anything, and to her surprise his response is no, it's just, he thinks he wouldn't be able to grant her wish. She seems to be after his destructive powers, but because the Dark Jewel has been stolen from him for many years, he has lost most of his powers. He continues, adding that it's also the reason he looks like that, and right now the only spells he can use are the simple ones like the one he used to free her from her bond earlier. She was stunned at first, but then a smile appeared on her lips as she assured him that wasn't a big problem at all. If he can grant her wishes once he remains his powers, then it's settled. She asks to draw up a contract to make sure they don't betray each other, and he agrees. On the other hand, an attendant suddenly rushed in to meet the king with news that the dull grey Saintess had disappeared. Someone had apparently kidnapped her. But even after a week, they still couldn't find her, and just as Angelica was starting to get upset, she overheard something regarding the pure white Saintess. In the worst-case scenario, we may have to use Angelica as sacrifice. 1 week later at the Pure White Palace, Angelica rejected her food. She ordered her maid to bring something else, and when she felt like she talked back, she rose up and struck her across the face. The maids around gossiped about her actions lately, calling it misplaced anger while she bit her nails thinking of how it was so irritating how they complained without knowing anything. She wasn't supposed to be like that either. Originally, the Otherworlder with immense power was supposed to become the pure white Saintess and serve as the sacrifice for erecting the barrier. Only they never expected her to possess that level of dull gray. So they concluded it was regrettable to lose the kingdom of Linus Saint, but they had no choice. Erecting the barrier takes priority, and Angelica's saintly power is quite strong. She never knew a sacrifice was needed for erecting the Great Barrier, but what was sacrier was she knew if things continued like that she would end up serving as the sacrifice no matter what, so she needed to find Sarah no matter what. At the same time, the Demon King asked Sarah what she planned to do as revenge, and she responded saying she'll Simony return the favor as it was done to her. But first, she will stay in hiding in his place. He ordered Luca afterwards to show her to her room. The next day, she walked around thinking of how even though she managed to enter a contract with the Demon King, his aid was troublesome. Because of his string loyalty, he couldn't bring himself to trust a saint who'd betrayed the Demon King in the past. So she thought, if she showed him that unlike the first saint she could be more useful to the Demon King, maybe he'll acknowledge her. Surprisingly, she met the Demon King on her stroll, sitting under a tree. She went straight to business and asked what she could do to be of use to him at that moment. He asked why she cared about that, and she hesitantly revealed that it was because she wanted the other demons to acknowledge her existence too. He told her he could just order them to accept her, but she refused, saying it wouldn't mean anything unless she earned their recognition through her own efforts. Then he admitted that he had a favor to ask her. Due to the stolen jewel, the world balance had been disrupted. The Demon Tribe Nation was suffering severe side effects, natural disasters are frequent and many are injured, and they've also fallen into severe labor shortage. He wanted her to help treat the injured as their natural recovery abilities have been declining in recent years. She accepted and was immediately escorted to a village. With Prine's help, she was taken to where the injured were. They were quite strong-headed at first, which was understandable, but her warmth and gentleness quick melted their cold facade. They apologized for how they'd treated her earlier and thanked her for treating them. But something about their thanks only strengthened her resolve not to let her guard down so easily. Last time, people thanked her like that too. Snapping her out of her thoughts, a boy urgently called out to her holding a man with a huge wound. The same man turned out to be Prine's dad. Since he was Prine's father, she thought that was enough confirmation he wasn't from the demon tribe but humans, and so she urged them to take him in and immediately started using her Saintess's power until she heard Prine call out to her with urgency, explaining that his father wasn't human, but from the demon tribe. For the demon tribe, light-based power is the same as an attack, and it must have dealt a significant attack to him. If he were to die, forget making allies of the demon tribe, she will definitely be seen as an enemy. She was self-reflecting when she heard a soft groan. The next time she turned her head, he was seated perfectly with no traces of wound and thanking her. Prine immediately rushed to his side, explaining what had just happened, but his dad simply asked in confusion what he was saying exactly, since he was perfectly healed. The Saintess stood to the side. She pondered on what she'd felt earlier when she used healing magic. It felt lighter than usual, like some kind of shadow was mixed in. Perhaps from the intense anger and despair she felt that day, a dark power was born within her. In that case, she offered to heal everyone. Luca, who'd originally not been receiving of her, apologized, even offering to take her back. Later that night, after taking a bath, she went straight to the Demon King's chamber. She walked straight to where he was without saying a single word, not even responding to his words, and took his hands. A bright blue light shone around them, and after soap time, he transformed. With a smile she asked how it felt, if it felt good to be back to his original form after so long. Just like she'd thought, she could grant him dark power, and if she used that as leverage in their negotiations, she might be able to secure even more of his cooperations. She asked if he can't let her go now, and he agreed, saying that was rather hard to give up. Then she asked to revise the terms of their contract. The edge of his lips stretched into a smirk as he walked straight to her. He grabbed her hand, then pulled her closer as he asked, "Then, marry me, Sarah." That's all for now, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and anticipate even better recaps this festive period in short time. Merry Christmas, guys, and happy holidays from Moonlite Recaps.